Well, good morning and kaya, everyone. I'm just going to start with a little bit of housekeeping as we're finding our seats. So this event is being held obviously in person. These are the people that you're in person with, and on Zoom. So if you could turn off your mobile phones, that would be great. There are toilets here. They're outside and to the right. In case of an emergency, follow instructions from platform staff. I don't know where the platform staff are, but you can just follow me. I'll be running that way. And before we start, I just want to thank our sponsors, and I'll come back to them, but I want to thank Fleetwood Australia, Beyond Bank and the Department of Communities for sponsoring Homelessness Week this year. Without their support, we would not be able to do the things we're doing this week. So it's my pleasure to introduce Auntie Marie Taylor to the stage to welcome us to country.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, and especially to those who are looking at me on Zoom, is it? Yeah, all these flash technology things. But I'm here today to welcome you all to the most ancient of Aboriginal land in the world, Noongar country. And I'm going to welcome you in the language of Noongar. Abba. Wajak Baladong Noongar Budi Yok Wanju Wanju Noongars, Noongar Wom, Wajalas, Budias, Nicha Yorkani Biberman Borja, Nicha Warding Met Management Kundam Borja, Murchenabidi Nicha Balaping Weir Mit Yenin Ngalakan Yai Ni, Karajinan Kura Yai Buddha. Greetings, the Aboriginal custodian welcomes you all here to the land of the people of many breast. This is Crow and Cockatoo dreaming land, whose families and ancestors tread the grounds, leaving footprints upon the land, where their spirit lingers on, surrounding us through stories as we listen, look, learn, talk, and later on we will celebrate. Nonakan, Kulin Kumbawaran Pokicha, Alijanuna Borja, Ual Kornicha, Borlu, Yalagonga Kalip, Wanju. Some of you may have come from over the Great Sea or from your lands afar to come and settle on our great leaders' camping grounds. I warmly welcome you to Noongar country. We are in the season of Djilba, and this is the season of Quannat, the black wattle, Ngulak, the black and white cockatoo, and jarrah, the beautiful tree that gives us eucalyptus shade. And it is the time of this season that they say we can collect roots, hunt emus and possums, and continue to hunt the kangaroos. And the kangaroos is a very interesting hunting story. And it is my grandfather, Pop Tom Bennell, it's his totem, and he has shown it to us. And in a long time ago, when totems were given, he was given the name Yellowkitch and the totem of Yonga, the kangaroo. I always like to share a story about my days in housing down at the Fremantle office, and when I was also down at Katanning as the acting branch manager. The one that I enjoy telling most is the one that happened down at Katanning. I had been out to Noangurup and signed up a husband and a wife to pay their bill. And Centrelink was supposed to take out 1 week rent from each person. So comes payday the next fortnight, and I get a visit from the gentleman. I could hear shouting going on at the front desk, and the staff were frightened, and they ran into my room and they said, "You better come and sort this out." So I thought, well, I better come out looking like the branch manager, and I put on my jacket and walked out. And he said, "You you're the one that stole my money. I said, okay. He said, if you don't give me my money back, I'm going to jump over the desk and hurt you. So I took a step back and I said to him, well, make sure that you get the first punch because I've got a black belt in karate. I don't know who was more shocked at me saying that, me, him, or the staff and the people who were on the other side of the desk. Anyway, we sorted it out for him and I never had no more problems from him again. And let me say, everybody, I don't have a black belt in karate. Let me leave a very special blessing with you all in case we never meet you again on Noongar country. Ngalakan Canning, Ngalakan Bullamurt, Ngalakan Bullabojak, Ualkul, Yakanin Ngalakundam, Doinch Doinch Warakan, Ngan, Nuna, Ngalak, Murich, Mort. Yes, we are one, but we are many, and from all the lands on earth we come. We share a dream and sing with one song. I am, you are, we are solid Australians. Yunka, have a lovely day, everybody. Thank you.
I think it was just feedback from Zoom, but it sounded like Kulbadi, magpies in the background, didn't it? So I thought that was appropriate. I forgot to introduce myself. I'm very sorry. My name is Kieran Wong and I'm the chair of Shelter WA. Thank you, Auntie Marie Taylor, for your warm and generous welcome to country. And I too would like to acknowledge that we're meeting on Whadjuk Noongar country and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. And I'd like to acknowledge the guests in the room today and online via Zoom. And some of you are joining us from across our state, and thank you for attending today. I'm just going to acknowledge some of the speakers at today's launch as well. The Honourable Simone McGurk, Minister for Child Protection, Women's Interests, Prevention of Family and Domestic Violence, Community Services. Minister McGurk's sustained leadership in her portfolio has resulted in significant new investment and initiatives to address homelessness and its drivers. John Berger, the Executive Officer of the WA Alliance to End Homelessness, and he'll be giving an update on the Alliance to End Homelessness today. I'd also like to acknowledge Josh Serafini, who's in the room, and some of you may have seen him on the news last night, or been lucky enough to join him on a walking tour yesterday, who will share his insights on his journey from homelessness to housing, and with him Margaret King from the City of South Perth and Gary Gower from Southcare, who have both provided Josh with support on this journey. Josh is a strong advocate for ending homelessness in WA, and I'd like to congratulate him on leading a lived experience tour through the streets of Perth yesterday, where he provided insight on what it's like to live on the streets, what helped him get off the streets and into a home, and to undertake the successful work that he does today. Hearing from people with lived experience of homelessness is critical in shaping policy and program responses. And finally, you may have seen them in their bright orange outfits, we will hear from the Australian Bureau of Statistics Local Engagement Officers, Alan Connolly, Deborah Ralph and Trish Owen, who will talk to the work that they're undertaking for the upcoming census. I'd also again like to thank our sponsors, the Department of Communities, Fleetwood Australia and Beyond Bank. And we now have a short video from one of our sponsors, Fleetwood.
Fleetwood is the only Australian-owned national modular manufacturer, building spaces for families and communities to thrive. Fleetwood Australia, serving Australian communities for over 50 years.
The theme for Homelessness Week 2021 is Housing Solutions to End Homelessness. And this week we have a range of events that are solution focused. These include the launch of the Ending Homelessness report by Professor Paul Flatow, followed by a workshop on insights from the current suite of homelessness and health research including evaluations of Perth's Housing First project, Advanced Zero and the By Name tool. These two events are directly after this launch, and I hope that you can stay for these. We have a forum and workshop on older women and housing solutions for ageing well. We have the launch of the Lived Experience Engagement Framework and Co-Design Toolkit. It's an important piece of work to support housing and the homelessness sector, to better harness the skills and experience of people with lived experience of homelessness and housing to inform policy and practice. Again, I'd encourage you to attend this launch and to register your organisation for a workshop on how best to utilise this toolkit. And later this week, we've got a housing charrette where we've matched architects, designers, planners and community housing providers to investigate solutions on government-owned land and to explore realistic and pragmatic models to deliver housing supply. This year's funds from our fundraiser will go to the Underground Collaborative, which is a Perth-based social enterprise that exists to educate, empower and employ, to create opportunities for women and young people experiencing or at risk of homelessness in WA. Your donation will help to break the cycle of homelessness through providing meaningful training and employment for women and young people through their employment program at Ground & Co. Their cafe located within the State Library of WA, which educates, upskills and provides employment. You'll have seen there is a donation tin next to the coffee machines at the back, or donations can be made on the Homelessness Week section of our website. On our website, you'll also find further information on our activities this week, as well as other events being undertaken across the state. This includes the launch of the 100 Families WA report, an important report that investigated alongside families experiencing entrenched disadvantage with what helps and what hinders breaking free from this cycle. And we know from research that safe, secure and affordable housing options are key. They are one key to breaking free from poverty and disadvantage. Everybody in this room knows that homelessness is a complex issue, but we have demonstrated that solutions are at hand. All Paths Lead to Home, the WA Homelessness Strategy 2020 to 2030, provides excellent architecture, which is underpinning our response to homelessness and the partnership approach outlined in the strategy between all spheres of government, the sector, and it shows that partnerships between these spheres and the community are critical. New government investment into housing first initiatives and interim accommodation solutions are making a real difference to the lives of many people who are sleeping rough. And we know that many West Australians are having a tough time. Along with good services systems and access to social and affordable housing, housing is the key to both preventing and to ending homelessness. The West Australian community understands this. COVID has brought a light to the importance of home to keep everybody safe and well. And an impact of the pandemic is many in our community are facing housing stress and at a risk of homelessness, many for the first times in their lives. As a result, there's been a community shift with deeper empathy, compassion, more generally towards people who are experiencing homelessness. Independent polling conducted by Painted Dog in June 2021 supports this. The polling found that so many people have been personally impacted by housing insecurity, and that housing and rent affordability and homelessness are among the leading issues that Perth citizens would like to see the state government spend more of its budget on. 1 in 5 people polled ranked housing affordability and homelessness as their #1 issue for the government to spend more of its budget on. It found that strategies that would reduce homelessness and make rental and social housing more accessible have broad community support. And this increase in community support and understanding should give us confidence to be bold and to continue our work, building on our collective initiatives and accelerating and increasing the rate of investment into social and affordable housing and solutions to end homelessness. I think we should be ambitious. I would now like to welcome to the stage Minister Simone McGurk to officially launch Homelessness Week 2021. Can you please join me in welcoming the Minister?
Thanks, John. Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. And can I start by acknowledging Murray Taylor? I don't know if Murray's still with us, but thanking her very much for her welcome to country. I was thinking, for me, this is the season of tissues and lozenges, coming into winter. So I hope my voice holds out. Acknowledging that we are on Whadjuk Noongar land here and paying respects to elders, past, present and emerging is as an important recognition of where we meet today. And I do that most fulsomely. Can I thank Kieran for his introduction and for his work as Chair of Shelter WA. Can I acknowledge Michelle McKenzie, Chief Executive Officer of Shelter, John Berger from the WA Alliance to End Homelessness as well, and all of you for coming along. And can I particularly acknowledge Josh and those people who are working on the census project, people with lived experience, making their contribution and really stepping up and doing important work in making sure that people who experience homelessness at this time are not left out of the picture. It's important. I think we all, as Kieran said, we all acknowledge that safe, secure shelter and support is integral to human wellbeing, yet too many West Australians find themselves without a home on any given night. And in fact, that data collection as we come up to a new census is still a work in progress. As we know, we, on a statewide level, still rely on the 2016 census figures to understand the extent, and often that's talked about in public terms when we talk about the number of people who are experiencing homelessness in all its forms. But an important part of our reform has been to make sure that we are doing more accurate counts and data collection, both de-identified but also identified data, so that we can really understand who is out there and who needs assistance. And I know that you know that people who experience homelessness, it's not who they are. They are experiencing a lack of accommodation and challenges at that time. Anyone can experience homelessness, and over time, and as you get to know people who are currently experiencing homelessness or have experienced it and then move on to other phases in their life, we understand that people's circumstances that lead them to homelessness are all very different, and in fact could happen to many people in the community. And obviously these are particularly challenging times in COVID. It's apparent to all of us that West Australia's housing market has experienced significant pressure due to many factors, including the pandemic and the increase of housing construction as a result of various incentive and schemes being offered. It was some comfort to see the news yesterday that Perth actually has had the lowest rate of growth in house prices in the country, but there's no denying that this is a real pressure, both with availability of stock and appropriate stock for some of the most vulnerable in our community. Whatever the cause, everyone has a right to feel safe and supported in their community. Having a home is about more than just having a roof over your head, and our responses to homelessness must reflect that. All the evidence tells us that combining safe and stable accommodation with the right support is key to breaking the cycle of homelessness. Again, I know that all of you, I know many of you looking around the room, and I imagine that I don't know who's on Zoom, but I suspect I would know some of those people as well. Appreciate that it's no one government, level of government, agency or service provider that can break the cycle of homelessness. We all need to work together in a coordinated and strategic way if we want to end these really difficult life circumstances that have led people to homelessness. And can I particularly acknowledge the work of service providers and their peak bodies, Shelter, and I see Louise Gillett is here from WACOS. Your service providers, you play an important role in helping the public understand the extent of the problem, but also what the solutions are. And your advocacy is important, both service providers and the peak body, to work together, for us to work together to look at evidence-based solutions and approaches so that the quantum of effort is commensurate with the problem, and it is a significant problem, but also that we embark on a program of reform. It's not a reactive response, and we are actually looking at how we can properly use the data and the evidence and the research to make a difference to our homelessness service system. Addressing homelessness in all its forms, from highly visible rough sleeping to less visible couch surfing or living in severely crowded dwellings, is a critical task and priority for the McGowan government. It's why we launched, the All Paths Lead to a Home 10-year strategy on homelessness that Kieran referred to. It's a whole of government and community plan that sets the direction for all levels of government, business and the community sector in responding to and preventing homelessness in Western Australia. Since we launched that in December 2019, significant progress has been made to deliver on elements of the strategy, and it's already starting to transform the way that government and the community sector work to support vulnerable people. Since the launch of that strategy, we've, as a government, committed significant new investment to support the implementation of the strategy, and this includes many initiatives that I know you've heard of before. The 2 common ground facilities, one in Perth and one in Mandurah, to provide permanent supportive housing for adults who have experienced chronic homelessness or who are on low income. The model is based on the Housing First approach, where people experiencing homelessness and rough sleeping are placed in housing as a first priority and provided with wraparound supports. And again, many of you are probably aware that we recently announced an additional funds for the East Perth facility. Previously, it was going to be about 70 units of accommodation. Now it will be 112 units of accommodation. We allocated $45.5 million to that project. It's part of the City Deal partnership between state and Australian governments and the City of Perth. So that's a good thing. We now know that this will be 112 units, and we will develop the Mandurah site, which will have dedicated units in it as well. We also announced, when we announced the strategy, $34.5 million to a Housing First implementation approach. And now in the metropolitan area, in Bunbury, Geraldton, and in Rockingham, we have people working on the ground doing that work, engaging with people and working with them to try and find accommodation and make sure they're connected to supports. We allocated $2.3 million to the development of the online homelessness service portal. And this is essentially the reform of the current system to make sure it is a modern system and it's meeting the needs of service providers and clients. And that's been developed, the goal of it, and also the detail of it is being developed in close partnership with service providers. You would have seen that we announced the establishment of Wooloo Biddy Maya, a new accommodation service for rough sleepers in Wellington Street in the city. And this was, as well as the lease of the facility, $6.7 million to Aboriginal controlled organisations. It'll be to Wunjinning and also to Noongar Maya Maya to run that facility. It won't just be for Aboriginal people, but having ACCOs run that facility, I think, will give us our best chance of engaging with some of those people, Aboriginal people and other people in the city who we find difficult to engage in a sustained way. It will be another offering. And in fact, we're hoping to take clients, the plan is to take clients into that facility later in the week, early next week. Each year, the Department of Communities spends over $100 million on specialist homelessness services. This includes family and domestic violence, crisis accommodation and support, homelessness accommodation and support, outreach, housing and tenancy support services. And for those of you, again, who are involved in the commissioning of some of those contracts, the discussion that's being had with the Alliance and with the Department of Communities is how we can adjust those contracts to make sure they're reflecting best practice in current responses to homelessness. Finally, you may have seen this week that we launched the Local Government Partnership Fund for Homelessness. So this will be $6 million where local governments, actually it's opening today, local governments will be able to apply for a one-off grant of between $25,000 and $200,000, and that'll be matched. So we'll put in that amount. They are required to put in the same amount to make sure that there are initiatives in their local areas that are appropriate to their local communities. So further information of the fund is available on the Department of Communities website. I always feel I've been speaking on this matter for a while now and know many of you in the room and as I said, probably online as well. And I know that you understand that homelessness is not an individual challenge. It is a challenge of our community. It is a challenge of our society. It is a challenge of our government systems and our service systems to make sure that they are doing everything they can in best practice, using the best available evidence, not only applying heart and effort and advocacy, but smart and evidence-based approaches to lift people out of poverty and out of the cycles of homelessness and support them with stable housing and the right supports for as long as they need those supports to stay in those in that housing. So thank you, all of you, for your efforts throughout the year, but it brings me great pleasure to officially launch Homelessness Week for 2021.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister. I'd just like to introduce John Burgeon, our Executive Officer at the Alliance to End Homelessness. He's going to give us an update on the work of the Alliance. John.
Thanks, Kieran, and thanks, Simone and Marie, for your warm welcome this morning. I'd like to start by saying Nala Kadich Nungamot Kain Kadik Nijabuja. And I certainly acknowledge the Whadjuk Noongar people as the original custodians on the land we meet, and pay my respects to elders, both past, present and emerging. Thanks for those comments. You know, I think if I reflect on where we are today, the level of engagement and working together is as strong, is stronger today than it has been in the past. I know when the Alliance came together, we always knew that homelessness would be a whole of community issue, and its ending would be reliant on our capacity to engage and support a whole of community response. And I think, Simone, you echoed those thoughts. Obviously, since the release of our strategy in 2018, the blueprint for ending homelessness in WA, we have provided a number of updates on our progress, especially our aspirations on our aspirations and our targets. Today, we will hear in more detail the latest update from the dashboard from Paul Flatto after this session. It would be fair to say, though, that while there's been significant activity and coming together and resources being directed in some areas, it is also fair to say that we still have a long way to go and much work ahead of us. For now, I'll just, I guess, provide you with a general update of some of the key activities that we've been focusing on over the last 12 months. As Simone spoke, obviously as fundamental to the Alliance strategy and also the department strategy is based on using housing first as the first response to homelessness. Global evidence supports the process of working as a system known as Advanced Zero. This approach is being used in Perth and in our regional communities of Geraldton, Bunbury, Rockingham and Mandurah, and is known as the Zero Project, which is delivered by RUA. My role has been to support this broader sector and community to engage with this initiative, and has included a range of activities that I've been involved in. Firstly, I guess I've had the privilege of being able to engage with a number of the particularly regional communities to help them set their long-term goal towards ending homelessness. and each of those 4 communities have set themselves a target to end chronic and rough sleeping by 2025. I've given a range of presentations to community groups to understand and connect to the Advance to Zero approach, including a number of volunteer and goodwill services, and helping us better understand how all our efforts can actually work towards ending homelessness. And obviously I've worked in terms of supporting the current homelessness sector to engage and transition towards housing first. Aboriginal housing first. Knowing that 50% of those experiencing homelessness are of Aboriginal descent, it was always clear to us that what we need to do is develop a cultural framework for housing first. We were fortunate to receive Lotterywest funding to engage an ACCO, namely Noongar Mia, to progress this work. Noongar Mia have been key to engaging the elders, other Aboriginal controlled organisations and the broader Aboriginal community to articulate what housing support looks like from a cultural perspective. Sandra Harbin is the project worker who has used her extensive experience and knowledge within the Noongar community to articulate what would be a Noongar cultural framework, and then with the work, working closely with Leah Watkins to translate the housing first principles within the Noongar cultural frame. Noongar Mia are now engaging intensively with the Noongar elders, and there's a few of them, and to ensure that what they've written, the cultural framework that they've put together, is representative by that community. And once they agree to this framework, Noongar Mia can be confident to apply this work not only in their own setting, but amongst other Aboriginal organisations, and then more broadly within the homelessness sector. This is pretty exciting because this work has not been done. When we look at the rollout of Housing First across the globe, there are almost no examples of Housing First being applied within a cultural framework. And so we'll be a first. We'll be a first potentially across the globe in terms of using Housing First or in using the principles of Housing First, but actually writing it within a cultural framework. Now, I'm conscious that the work has been written within the Noongar community, but in talking with Noongar Mia and with some of the elders, they're confident that their frame can be translated to other First Nations communities and groups. But what it does demand is that deep engagement with each of those communities for them to articulate what does strong, healthy living look like within their community, and then applying the Housing First principles against that. So that work will emerge over the next few months. Another piece of work that we're doing is looking at housing models that support the Housing First approach. Curtin University has been engaged to examine and research those models, both nationally and globally, that support the Housing First approach. Why do we need to reinvent the wheel? Why don't we use the evidence of those programs that are being successfully implemented across the globe and use that information to apply to our local solutions? The information that they're gathering will be put on our website, and that will be available to anybody. So whether you're a corporate group, whether you're an industry group, whether you're a charitable group thinking about developing housing, this information will be available to you to help you inform your particular project or your passion to look at what are those solutions that have worked successfully across the globe. So again, we're looking forward to that information becoming live in the coming months. Finally, obviously, that since the inception of the Alliance, we've always said that we need evidence and be driven by evidence. And so our update reports are key to understanding how are we tracking and what's the evidence telling us? And that very much informs what we're doing and how we're responding. Finally, I guess there's been a range of other activities in which we have been supporting and connecting with the community. We are now members of the Institute of Global Homelessness, which is I guess the global group looking to end rough sleeping. And I know that there are conversations with our state government to look up to signing towards an MOU to ending homelessness for Perth and in Western Australia. We have monthly pulse meetings. These are the opportunity for anyone to come along, whether you're in the sector, whether you're in the community, whether you're in industry, anyone who's interested in learning and understanding about what's being done to end homelessness can come along to our monthly meeting on a Wednesday morning on the first Wednesday of the month. We also have monthly support calls from the Institute of Global Homelessness. Again, we're tapping into global evidence and sharing that evidence with key people within our community in Western Australia to see what can we learn from what's been done overseas and how we can apply it to our situation in Western Australia. And I know more recently some of the regional communities have been joining those discussions, which is great to see. We undertook a perception study about the impact of homelessness. While it was released, I guess now almost a year ago, or at least 8-9 months ago, it certainly gave us a strong understanding about the community perceptions and understanding of homelessness. And that is work that will continue to inform us going forward. The In Place initiative, I'm proud to say that the corporate sector has responded to the call for more affordable housing and social housing. So through the City Rotary Group, they've established a business alliance called In Place. They're on the web. They're focusing and supporting the My Home project, which Michelle Blakely leads, but they're also looking at how else can we engage the corporate and industry groups to develop affordable and social housing to end homelessness. And so that's a great initiative. It's early in its days, but we have a number of key leaders within our community helping to drive that. And I guess finally, if we think about a community response to homelessness, it's hard to go past the work that Rotary, I think I participate now in a monthly meeting, which is sort of a homelessness hub for Rotary. I think there's something like 46 or close to 50 Rotary groups, all supporting some initiative towards ending homelessness. And we know that they are supporting the fit out of the homes that will occur in the My Home project, but they're doing a range of activities, including the tiny homes that were developed in Bunbury. So I think it's important that we continue to build those relationships and connect with those groups in the community that have a heart for this and helping them align their efforts to the work that we are doing. So I guess in wrapping up, it's fair to say that our focus has been on engagement and communication and connecting projects and people to what's happening across the community. The results of our report will highlight that some of the key challenges we face going forward, and it will continue to inform our work in the year ahead. Thank you.
Thanks very much, John. It's my pleasure now to introduce the next group of speakers. I'm going to introduce Josh Serafini, Margaret King and Gary Gower. So Josh Serafini experienced homelessness for periods of time for more than 20 years since he was about 15 years old. Josh started the initiative with HOME, which stands for Hope, Opportunity, Mutuality, Empowerment, Karrawara, which is a collaboration between the City of South Perth and local service providers, including Waterford Plaza, Southcare, Richmond Wellbeing, Mordich Keeler, Lifestreams Christian Church, Mordich, Personal Attributes and the Department of Housing. And he's also the recipient of the Rotary Club of Mill Point's Unsung Hero Award for 2020. Margaret King is a Community Development Coordinator at the City of South Perth. And Margaret has worked for over 10 years in community development. In her role as Community Development Coordinator, she oversees a team with responsibility for Aboriginal engagement, community safety, emergency management, youth and children, seniors, disability access and inclusion, place activation, homelessness, partnerships, community grants and volunteering. I hope that's a very big team. It's not. It should be bigger. And finally, Gary Gower, Family Support Coordinator at Southcare. Gary's worked at Southcare in both Aboriginal elder care and family support since 1999, providing an effective and empowering service through case management, men's and community group work, community development and education, and interagency collaboration. He's one of the founding members of the Aboriginal community group Mordich Kila and is the coordinator of the Southcare's Men's Empowerment Program. Born and raised in Broome, of Yawuru descent, and he's equally proud of his Anglo-Eurasian heritage. I'd like to welcome now Gary, Margaret and Josh to the stage. Not sure which order you're going in. Are you going in 1, 2, 3? Oh, sorry, I did that wrong. I thought you were all coming up together. Josh first.
Okay, thanks, Kieran, for the kind words, and good morning, everyone. So I'd also like to say thank you to Michelle McKenzie and the shelter team for supporting me through yesterday's walk, which was really successful, and those that attended. And also Mark Gleeson from Anglicare for supporting my project and allowing me to grow my platform and the promising future that that has in the up and coming years. So I guess me to be up here is a big honour, a big privilege to represent the homeless people and the lived experience and be able to share some of my traumatic past. I'm also very conscious of Alana Garlett, who passed away last week. She was on the news, some of you might have seen her. And she was one of my friends, so I actually spent a lot of time with her, sleeping rough, and she was one of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. She would always share everything that she had, and she used to buy me hats and clothes and always made sure that I was looked after in a special way. So, you know, my memory of her, just recently, she was sitting on the street and she deserves so much better. I'm really sad that she's passed away, and all the other 56 homeless people that have died this year. So last year I was talking about the 30 people that had passed away that were close to me, and that's my community of people. And not only that, they were a close group of friends that I would have daily occurrences with and say hello to. So they're always familiar to me for those people that were sleeping rough on the street. And you know, my view on the take is that homelessness should be illegal, and we need to be able to house those people immediately rather than 5 years down the track, when I can tell you the strategy right now is to build those houses in equal amounts to the homeless that are sleeping rough here in WA. And that would end it immediately rather than putting in the strategies over years and years, because we've failed epically over the last decades, and nothing's been done about it. It's still staying the same. It's fantastic. Everyone's passionate and wants to put these projects forth, but really, you know, you just genocide to our community. And that's the way I honestly look at it. And if I was to stand up here and be happy about it and advocate something different, I don't think anything will be done. And yes, it is a group effort. And you guys here have that big impact. So you've got the biggest impact for the community to be able to hear those words, you know, that we need to end it today rather than later. So, you know, being able to have that conscious thought and get into the position where people are going to acknowledge that, and that's the truth, and not hear lies or any other strategy apart from that. So that's what I would be pushing for. That's what I'm always going to be pushing for. But now some of my circumstance when I was homeless, you know, we're in the middle of winter where, you know, it's freezing out there, and Alana died cold, you know, cold, and there's going to be a rally up in Parliament today where her family wants answers on why she's dead. And, you know, that's a hard reality. You know, you have to give an answer if you're that person responsible or in that position advocating for homelessness. You know, what is the answer to her death? You know, apart from the family's pain and everybody suffering that. So, you know, for me, it makes me mad, and it makes me want to fight and keep fighting and keep talking and being passionate about what truly means the most to me, and that is to end homelessness here in Perth. So, you know, I hope that you get behind me and WA Shelter and everyone that's trying to push for this, you know, crisis to end, and hopefully we can come to a conclusion very soon. So I'd like to thank Margaret King and Gary Gower for coming here and always being a solid support for me to be able to create that platform of work. And Al, Deborah and Trish, the other lived experience advocates that are here today, you know, to be a tight group and work together the best we can and try to have that end goal of ending homelessness in the near future. So, you know, I'm not going to go on, and I think that what I've said is impactful, and keep it short and sweet for everyone, because I know there's a lot of other speakers here today. So thank you everyone for coming, and please keep that support happening and remember what I've said today. Thank you.
Thanks, Josh, for your powerful words, and thanks also to Shelter WA for allowing me to come and speak today. I think the theme that has been running through with previous speakers is that it actually takes a community to support someone out of homelessness, and it's an honour to work in local government, because local government is that tier of government that is closest to the people. So at the City of South Perth and many other local governments, our work, particularly in community development, is built on those relationships we have with the community. So it's not, I suppose, sitting behind a desk with our policies and procedures, and it's actually getting out into the community, getting to know our community really well and supporting that community. We work on an asset-based community development. So what we do is we identify, or the community actually identify the assets, and when Josh came to us, his asset was his love of food and his amazing ability to cook. It is really, as we've put out in some media, and it's that home cooked meal. It's the think of your Sunday roast. It's the and it's food that's nutrient dense as well, which I think is really, really important when people are struggling. And so that Josh identified that was one of his assets, and said, okay, well, how can we help to feed people who are vulnerable and people who are living rough in the City of South Perth? So we were really honoured to have the support of Royal Perth Golf Club. So they really, they run a charity day every year, and they have a certain amount of money that they put towards community-led events. And so they actually fund this, Royal Perth Golf Clubs, and it's a great combination of what's perceived as quite a privileged group, and then they're giving back and supporting, because they've really got a heart for that support of the community. and with working with Josh, what it's done is it's got that word out. It means that we have people with lived experience helping other people who are vulnerable. So say, for example, if the community phone me up and say, look, concern, there's some homeless people living in a particular area of the city of South Perth, I can phone Josh and say, look, what should we do? And he'll often say, look, I'll just pop down there, say hi, see if they want something to eat, and see if they need something and how they're travelling, which is really good for us as the City of South Perth to have that support. So that relationship with Josh and with the homeless sector, I suppose broadly as well, is a relationship built on respect and trust. And I think that's really important. And the City of South Perth have put their trust in Josh, that we can, I suppose, we can ring him up and ask his opinion on particular things, because we know that he understands it from that lived experience. We also, the City of South Perth, through understanding and learning from Josh, is providing safe spaces to support people, and particularly the library is one of those safe spaces. We encourage people who are homeless to come and spend time in our libraries, come and use the IT equipment, come and fill out the census, which is just so important. So I think that's another really important thing that local government should provide, those safe spaces. So look, it's been an absolute honour to work with Josh. It's also been an honour to do some work with Trish as well, and to understand that lived experience and really to broaden the understanding of local government and build those assets within the community. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'd firstly like to start off by thanking and acknowledging Margaret and Josh. It is all about relationships, and working with these two people and Rotary clubs and the councils. I've worked that long at Southcare that I've worked with 5 different mayors, and when I first met Margaret, we've since worked with 3 mayors. So it's all about having relationships, and I thank all those people for helping us to help people like Josh. And can I add to Josh's cooking prowess? On Sunday, he catered for 120 people for a NAIDOC function that we held. And it was quite amazing. Yeah, all the curries and roast dinners, people really raved about it. And so, Josh, when he came to me and I first met him 4 years ago, he was transitioning from rough sleeping to housing in Como. And so there were some rough edges about this guy, and he was a bit intimidating. But he was looking for someone he could trust in. And I liked the guy straight away, and the Minister hit the nail on the head. It is about engaging sustainably. My workplace thought, what is this guy doing here every day, every week, every month? But hey, what's half an hour? Spending time with Josh and giving him the confidence, the self-esteem to feel good about himself. And so we had that fantastic, we developed that great relationship, and we achieved quite a lot together. Margaret talked about Josh's community dinners. For the benefit of those who haven't experienced or heard what it is like to support someone transitioning from sleeping rough to being housed, and in Josh's case, via Rua's 50 Lives, 50 Homes project, has its challenges and rewards and good outcomes. But it takes an investment of time. Like I said, you have to put that time in, and I'm so glad that for the support around me, for the opportunities that we could give to Josh, and the support agencies. And it is all about going the distance, and a lot of us have found it very trying at times, very challenging, but it has been very rewarding. Josh has also been a part of our Mooroochee Keilor Men's Group and the Empowerment Program. He's given so much back to the community. I've helped him, yes. People have helped Josh, but what he's given back to me is a fantastic network of people and how to engage effectively with homeless people. And so Josh is, in the men's group, he's introduced us to gymnasiums, and and to healthy living and healthy working, healthy mind. So he's given more back to me. The relationship has been great, and I've benefited as much as Josh has benefited. But the men and the community have also benefited so much from Josh for opening his heart to us, for giving and for giving back to the community. And it's been a pleasure, Josh, and I really thank people like the Minister and John and Shelter WA, Michelle. There's so many genuine people that really want to do something. And I know Josh wants to do things very quickly. We all do, Josh. But keep up the good work, everyone. And yeah, thanks, Josh. Keep it going, mate. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Josh, Margaret, and Gary. I'd like to introduce now our final set of speakers for today. Alan Connolly, Deborah Ralph and Trish Owen, and who've been engaged by the Australian Bureau of Statistics as local engagement officers to ensure the voices of people experiencing homelessness are counted in this year's census. And we heard previously from the Minister the importance of things like census data and evidence to drive policy reform into the future. So Alan Connolly is a trusted and multi-award winning community entrepreneur with a passion for economic sustainability from community-led development and a purpose to end homelessness in WA and beyond. Alan has lived experience in homelessness and has now made ending homelessness in Western Australia and beyond his purpose and personal social responsibility. Deborah Ralph has an extensive portfolio, and I'm not joking when I say that. I've just had to read it in advance of this, and it is incredibly extensive. I'm going to read just a snapshot. She's currently the Regional WA Communication Community Relations Specialist, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. She's been at Shelter WA Home Group Consultant, the Rainbow Group Food Services Manager. She's a professional artist. She was the 2021 Artist in Residence Street to Street Art Project at Shelter WA. Is a local engagement officer in the ABS Census, and in 2019, the Street Friends Manager and Dream Builders Daycare Manager. So that, I mean, yeah, I could go on, but I won't. It goes on. So Deborah has a very extensive portfolio. Trish Owen's lived experience in housing and homelessness began through her community housing provider doing tenants focus groups back in 2016. And in 2019, after a tenancy conference that included people with lived experience, she worked to formulate an alliance called Make Renting Fair campaign, advocating for tenants' voices to be heard in the review of the Residential Tenancies Act. She then joined the Home Group and became project lead for the development of the framework. She still currently works with an aim to have lived experience voices heard throughout all sectors of our system. So I'm delighted to invite Alan, Deborah, and then Trish to speak. Thank you.
I'm very nervous, although I have spoken many times in other forums. I think the extensive portfolio, I can say my most important part of that portfolio is I'm someone with extensive lived experience of homelessness pretty much my whole life. in various forms of homelessness. But first of all, I would like to say thank you to Shelter WA for inviting us to speak. And on behalf of the Bureau of Statistics Census 2021, I wish to acknowledge the custodians of this land, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation and surrounding areas, and their elders past and present. I acknowledge and respect their continuing culture and contribution they make to the life of this city and this region. There are many definitions of homelessness, but I'm going to share the Census 2021 definition of homelessness. Under the ABS definition of homelessness, a person is homeless if they do not have suitable accommodation alternatives and their living arrangement is in a dwelling that is inadequate, which can be tent, car, or has no tenure, or if their initial tenure is short and not extendable. So this is very interesting because it includes short-term accommodations and crisis accommodations. And sometimes people are in those accommodations for 3 months and they're renewing their tenures every 3 months. This is still considered homelessness. Does not allow them to have control of and access to space for social relations. So they could be staying at someone's house but not be able to have any social interaction with their own family and friends because of the circumstances they're in that dwelling. About the 2021 Census Homelessness Strategy. The 2021 Census Homelessness Strategy outlines the approaches for encouraging and enabling the participation of people who may be experiencing homelessness at the time of the Census 2021. The 2021 Census Homelessness Strategy has two major goals. The first goal is to maximise the coverage of the enumeration of people in circumstances whereby they are likely to be considered homeless at the time of Census 2021. To provide relevant and accurate information to policymakers and service providers regarding the count and characteristics of people experiencing homelessness in Australia. The strategy builds on the successes of 2016 homelessness strategy with some changes to account of the broader 2021 census enumeration model. The changes are significant. For example, in 2011, field officers had included homelessness in their overall portfolio of enumeration. In 2016, we developed an inclusive strategy for homelessness, and we had 6 local engagement officers in WA with 23 census field officers. And I'm delighted to say the inclusive strategy for Census 2021 has increased to 11 local engagement officers in WA with 58 census field officers, specifically focused on the homeless enumeration, which is very exciting. For the first time in the census, the inclusive strategy is providing a great opportunity for the most truthful count, with the team all being recruited due to a background in the homelessness sector or with a personal lived experience. And I think this is really absolutely fantastic. So why is it important to measure homelessness? Census homelessness estimates have a significant impact on policies, funding for support services and programs, and are politically and community sensitive. Because of these reasons, they are subject to a high degree of scrutiny. The homelessness estimates form one of the key indicators of the National Housing and Homelessness Agreement. The NHHA provides around $1.5 billion each year to states and territories to improve Australians' access to secure and affordable housing across the housing spectrum. I personally can say that's a lot of money, and I can say, Josh, I'm with you all the way, let's do it now. There is strong demand from community groups and local service providers for small area data. The information allows them to better understand the needs of their local areas and provide targeted services to improve outcomes. In a minute, I'm going to show you a video and then I'll hand the time over to Trish. But I just want to say, when I was a child, my parents were homeless in New South Wales. I was put in orphanages for a little while, for a couple of years. And then as a teenager, I was in halfway houses, youth houses. And as an adult experiencing domestic violence, I was put in different positions of having to stay at friends' houses. And even though I consider I'm very highly educated, I've got degrees behind me, I've done much work, but I got sick 12 years ago, had a stroke and had to sell my home in Gidgegannup that I worked hard at for 10 years, and then lost everything because I got sick and had strokes and toxemia and all sorts of things. So I would like to say that the courage that it takes to actually be a person here today to share lived experience in other forums, to actually share our personal story, but also to then be drivers to contribute to the collaborative change in housing insecurity and homelessness is from our heart, and we are in it for the long run in many, many ways. So in saying that, even recently, housing, I had an issue, housed for 5 years, paid high rent, good rent on time, but I was still caught in that rent moratorium and recently had to move and almost didn't get a place with 70 people lined up. So I'm going to close because I'm going probably over time. So I would like to show the homelessness and the census video and then hand the time over to Trish. Thank you.
I think the census is really important to us as Australians so that we can get a better understanding of what each community needs and then work towards how we can improve and meet those needs. Without those accurate numbers, we don't know what's going on and we're not able to provide better care. I found myself homeless by being in the out-of-home care system, and when it came to leaving, there wasn't a real exit plan brought forward. I had to go through homelessness services and try and find somewhere. I found a transitional property for a short-term period, but then found myself with nowhere to go. It's really important to know that you can still be counted in the census even if you don't have a permanent address, and you still have a right to put in a census form and have your voice counted. You can do the census from any place that you're at, any place that you're staying. People that are currently couch surfing or have experienced couch surfing don't often see themselves as homeless. They feel if there's a roof over your head for the night, then you're not homeless. When in fact, technically you still are homeless. If you don't have a permanent address, you should enter none. For the suburb part of the question, where does the person usually live? Throughout August, there will be census staff out at drop-in centres and going around trying to help people who haven't been able to complete it. Our voices are really important, and this is the way that it's counted. So share your voices through this.
All right, I've been told I have to speak into this. Nala Kurich Nunga Mort Kayan Karak Nija Buja.
So thank you for appearing before the committee today, and I invite you to make a brief opening statement.
That's not me. All of a sudden my voice morphed. So I acknowledge the Noongar people of the traditional custodians, and I'd also like to acknowledge those that have spoken today with a lived experience of homelessness and housing insecurity, and those that are currently experiencing homelessness who are, we're all here to support. I've got to press this button and this doesn't show. Okay, so I'm just going to talk to this as it goes through, and you can read and listen at the same time because I'm not very good at following directions, and I need to put this on. because you're not going to miss me. And I need to remember which hat I'm up here with. So census, 10th of August, hands up who's received their letter in the mail. Keep your hand up if you filled it out already. Oh, some of you nerds. Oh, yeah. So obviously when you have a home address, it's easy to fill out your census form. If you have a computer and internet, you can just go on there and whip it out and it's done. For people experiencing homelessness, it's not so easy. And obviously, like we've heard, this year's census with those numbers, 56 people. So I've got a team of 5. I'm in the southwest metro area. And I've got a team of 5 field officers who will be standing out with forms to make sure people who are sleeping rough are enumerated. Enumerated is a special word for counting. When we were all hired, we had these two in our first training session. We talked about there's people who do the county and the talkie, and we are the talkie people. So I've talked to a lot of you in this room to make sure that we are working together to make sure that everyone counts. The little slogan on my shirt says every stat has a story, and we've heard a couple of those stories today, and that's part of the emotional weight of the work of lived experience advocates and consultants, is that we hold space for people's stories. But the census, the ABS doesn't want the stories, we just want the stats, because with the stats comes the money. To make sure that people are, I'm pressing the wrong side. Am I? It's not moving. Okay, so we're going to stay on this slide until it decides to move, and I'll just keep talking. So they've like has been shared, the ABS have done a stellar job of recruiting awesome people like Deb, Al and I, and another 11 people, some who, Western Australia is really big, have spent a lot of time in their car travelling to the southwest regions up north. I think someone's in Broome for a couple of weeks to make sure that the people experiencing homelessness are counted. Deb's already gone through that one, so we'll flick on to the next one. So homelessness, there's different groups, and I'm preaching to the converted in a room with homeless service providers because you all know this, so I'm not going to stop on that. I'm going to go on to what you can do. Hang on, have I flick through the one that says about the forms. When you get your forms, and if you are explaining to someone about the forms, there's 3 types of forms that us in the homelessness inclusion strategy are supporting people to fill out. The household form that you've all, or 3 of you, have filled out already online. We have hard copies of those forms for if people need support to do that. Question 12, tell me, in question 12, if someone is couch surfing or in an overcrowded place, what are they writing there under suburb? Can't hear you. None. We're writing none. And we're making sure that this is that the word is out there, that this is what people need to write, so that the numbers are reflective of what the reality is. Same with the, I don't know if that's the next slide. Oh no. Same with the personal form. So there's a household form, which is an orange form, not as bright as this. And then there's a personal form, which will go to all non-private dwellings. So St Pat's has got a whole heap that are sitting in my house at the moment. There's all hospitals and service providers, all of them get non-private dwellings. So if you are in a transitional accommodation, I think it's question 10 on that, where it says, what is your usual address? What are they writing on the suburb? None. You all look a bit stone-faced, so I'm trying to liven you up a bit. Okay. For people who are rough sleeping, we have a special short form that has 10 questions on that. So this is where myself and my team, and then Deb and Al and their teams, are going out with our little clipboards and our awesome orange beanies and our big census badges to interview people to make sure that they are counted and supported in the homeless in this census. These are the questions. You can read that. I'm not going to read it for you. And so, none. There it is, couch surfing. It's there again. So we're writing none. Everyone knows that on question 12, and in the personal form, I'm pretty sure it's question 11, 10. Anyway, the question is, where does the person usually live? nowhere. So we're right, none. I had a conversation with my daughter's boyfriend who's currently homeless, and he's like, no, I'm staying with my cousin. I was like, are you on the lease? He's like, no. I'm like, you're homeless, fill out your form, right, none. He will, because he's dating my daughter. People in overcrowded dwellings. So they can request additional personal forms. So obviously every household will get a household form, and then you can get more information to find out where I'm going to be, where people who have these, oh, there's one of my CFOs at the back there, where you can find the personal forms to account for the additional people in those overcrowded properties to make sure everyone gets counted. What can you do? Talk to your clients, to people experiencing homelessness, and make sure that everyone is, knows about the census and knows that they have a right to be counted. And I remember in one of our training sessions, we had someone, an Aboriginal person, who said 50 years ago, First Nations people weren't counted. Like that's atrocious. That's, and now we heard today 50% of Aboriginal people are our homelessness population. Like, that is sad. And if our hearts are not broken by that, then they should be. But everyone can do something. So I'm excited that my personal walk and journey with having a lived experience has led me to now be working for the ABS. I bet they didn't know what they were signing up for. And that I have these opportunities, but like Josh, Deb, Al, I'm not here just for me to make a note of myself. It's for those that are still out there, for those that are still, experiencing homelessness. Like that whole saying, nothing about us without us. Like, we need to stop as a system doing things for and to people and start doing them with people. So that's all for me. And now I'm going to pass you on to Al, who's going to tell you what you can do next.
Wow, no, what a fantastic presentation. And, from people who not normally in this environment, but they've taken to it like ducks to water. And they really do have a passion to make sure that everybody is counted and that every stat tells a story. So if you just give another round of applause to Deb and Trish, I thought that was fantastic. Thank you. So where to now? Am I going backwards? There we go. Now I've ended. There we go. So it's a lot to remember when somebody's standing up here for 10, 15, 20 minutes. You can actually access all of this information online if you go to the information session. It's the last one tomorrow. We have some of our upline in the room today, and Jodie, who will be on that presentation as well. So thank you everybody for coming. It's really, really important that we get together as a group and a sector and start to make all of this activity that's happening with Shelter WA, with the Ending Homelessness Alliance, and with all of your organisations, but more importantly, with government, with local council. Have you ever seen a time when a community has come together more than right now? So thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan, Deborah and Trish. My mother was an econometrician and statistician, and she instilled in me a deep, deep love of statistics and an understanding of their power. So yeah, maybe I'll have to get myself an orange beanie at the next census and join in. Look, I am now about to close this event, and we're actually running on time, which is excellent. And that's a result of our excellent speakers and this minute-by-minute account of what I need to say that's been given to me by the shelter staff. I think one thing that I can say is that from the speakers today, that relationships are important, and relationships are critical if we are to work together in partnership. But also outcomes are important. And I don't want to be standing here as a very old man talking about this. I would like to, in my lifetime, not have a homelessness week. And so relationships and outcomes. I'd like to thank our guest presenters, Auntie Marie, who had to leave a bit early for our welcome to country. Minister McGurk, thank you again for your sustained leadership in this space. It does, if I was a different sort of bloke and I could think of sporting analogies in this time of the Olympics, I would think of some relay race analogy, but I can't, so I'm sorry. But the sector and the peaks are very keen to support this continued sustained effort. And so if there's a baton or a javelin or something, let us know. We can bring it to bear. John Berger, thank you. John's facilitating the next session, the official launch of the End Homelessness Report. I've just read it. It's fantastic. Thanks, Paul. I haven't read it actually, but I'm going to read it. I promise. Not just the exact sum either. I want to thank Josh and Margaret and Gary for their powerful words. I think we've heard courageous testimony today from people with lived experience, but also from people in community who have direct sort of action and engagement and the benefits that can bring too. And finally, Alan, Deborah and Trish, as I've said, statistics form part of my DNA. I love numbers dearly, and so thank you for your work too. Thanks to our sponsors, again, Fleetwood Australia, Beyond Bank and the Department of Communities. Without their generous support, this would not be happening. I'd like to also thank the Shelter WA team, and I'm going to list out their names and thank them individually because they do an incredible job, actually, in policy, in advocacy, in projects, in making my life easier by giving me sheets of paper that have minute-by-minute breakdowns, in all sorts of things. So thank you to Michelle McKenzie, our CEO. Thank you to Dr. Reese Plunkett in policy, Chantel Caruso, Heather Bush, Royston Hardy, who push buttons that I don't even know what they do, but they seem to do things up here and it's fantastic. But beyond that, are an incredible source of our communications and media advocacy. Janae Russell, who coordinates things with Aplomb, Dr. Johanna Mitchell, who's joined us recently in policy, and Jocasta Sybil, who is our latest recruit. We've jammed them all into a stationery cupboard at Lottery's house, and they are doing an incredible job. So thank you very much. Yeah. I'd also like to thank the board of Shelter. Some of the members of the board are here today for, again, another way of saying this, another form of sustained leadership in this space. And thank you for your insights on the board. Thank you to all of those who are attending on Zoom. And yes, we all know we've spent a lot of time on Zoom, but thankfully there's also the ability for people to attend in person. So thank you for the people here. Just before I close, I just want to make sure that all the speakers come back on the stage. We've got a little gift and we'll take a photo and do all those usuals. So don't run away just yet. We have brunch to be served. So we have 2 other events following this. So it would be great if you could stay, have a cup of coffee, have a piece of watermelon, I think, and stay for the next 2 events. So thank you very much, one and all, and hope you can stay for the rest of the week. Thank you.